So I am UI Busy Betty. I'm a UI UX developer, but now I'm doing full stack because I do whatever they told me to do. And somebody was making fun of me. They're like, "Aren't you just a busy Betty?" And I'm like, you know what? I am. Thank you. I am. I'll take that. So this is our agenda. Quick introduction. I'm going to show you some cross-platform apps. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. What's React Native? And then we're going to go through all of the CLIs. My deck, I have posted up there. DevFest, Busy Betty. And I'll also tweet it out on Twitter, too. All right, who am I? These are all the crazy titles I've had over the years. I've been probably like 18 years now. So I think some of the most interesting ones, I was a webmaster, and I got called the web mistress, and that made me kind of feel uncomfortable. Content administrator, I've done kind of everything. I started out as a musician. I'm still a musician, but I don't perform as much as I'd like to. This is my family. I do have 5 kids. That's a picture last night when we got to the hotel room, and that is a picture of me and my fiance. I know he's good looking because gay men hit on him everywhere we go. Stop, guys. So yes, and that's actually my daughter, not me holding my youngest daughter. Everybody thought that my daughter was her daughter because they have a 16-year age gap, so it's really fun. But I do really relate to the what our keynote speaker was talking about was really the stress of life. I get it. I live it every day. And these are places I've worked where I've had stress and lived it. Spent lots of years in the city of Tampa, did some cool stuff with government, did work for Bright House before they were acquired by Spectrum, and I spent a stint for a few years at Triad Retail Media. Actually, all of these have new logos now. That's how long it's been. Definitely work in an ad agency if you get an opportunity to, because it's really fun. I turned out a lot of products. I got to do a lot of different things, especially as a front-end developer. I built HTML games one week. I would build enterprise content a few weeks later. So if you haven't worked in an ad agency and you're early in your career, definitely take the opportunity to do that. I won an Addy Award, got to wear a fancy dress. It's all good. But here's my life at Agile Thought. I set up coding classes for kids. We do happy hours. These are a couple of the lady developers I work with. In the far right corner, a lot of us work remote. And our boss texted us like, "Are you guys in the office today?" And we just sent him this picture. Yes, we're having our dinner or lunch or whatever it was. So if you're not having fun at work and work is creating a stress and you don't feel comfortable being yourself, change jobs. Get rid of it. I mean, there's plenty of jobs in the industry. There's no shame in changing companies every couple of years as well, too. So if you're not having fun and you don't enjoy going to work, consider moving to another company. All right, I'm an active member of Girl Develop It. I'm a trainer. I'm the director of Women Who Code, Tampa Bay area. That's how I started speaking, was through Women Who Code and going through different events. I just found the organization. I thought, wow, I'd really like to get in contact with other women who code since I'm usually the only woman on my team. So we started doing stuff with them, and I started facilitating events. The next thing I know, I was the director. But that's enough about me. We're here to talk about React Native. What is it? What's the ecosystem like? And my goal from this presentation is that you guys go home tonight or this afternoon, or if you have your laptops out right now, start building apps. It's so pervasive. It's so easy right now to get started. Because as you heard probably some other talks throughout this conference, it's not just about being a web app. People want native as well. And it's extremely costly to be able to code Java and to code iOS and to retain 2 forms. So React Native is one of the hybrid apps that offer cross-platform. And of course, why is native better? How many of you are Apple iPhone users? How many of you are Android users? How many of you would ever want to change to an Apple or an iPhone? So very few of us are willing to change our user experience. We like that native experience. Our navigation's different. This is the friction points that it just like, what the hell is this? Stop. The date pickers are different. That's a Windows phone to the left. I don't know if anybody has one. I barely got a picture of one. But the date picker is different. The React Native Windows, that date picker will look like that, so it is relevant. And again, clients want to be in both ones. It's costly to maintain too. This is kind of talking about worldwide users. That's why you see iOS is lower than Android, but in the US, iOS is, and depending on your demographics, we have a larger usage here. The interesting thing is when you look at the very bottom, the amount of money being made in the iOS space versus Android. So, and if you get the slides, I have all the references to blog articles. I'm not just making this up. I used other people's information. And this is the development. This is what we live in. And I think all of us have looked at, okay, I want to get into app development. Do I start in Java? Do I learn Swift? Do I learn Objective-C? It's overwhelming. And then we're worried, okay, if I go into that career, will I lose my other skills and I'm going to be an iOS developer forever? You know. So it's something to think about. And then the cost of development. So having the license, the dev license in Apple, the Android's obviously much more affordable, and the amount of days and hours. So think about all of this kind of stuff when you're starting a life cycle project as well too. All right, so what are the current hybrids out there? There's Ionic. I think some of you already went to the Cordova Ionic talk. How many? Okay. Flutter, which we'll be doing this afternoon. Got lots of cool stuff from Flutter. NativeScript, Xamarin, which is Windows, and I'll be covering React Native. But real quick, so Ionic. I started with Ionic because I'm a web developer, and it looks like a web page. HTML, CSS. This was even before AngularJS. And I use those Cordova plugins to build. So it looks like a web page. This was very pervasive for me to transition over. And I actually went to a hackathon, and we used Cordova and created with some IoT devices, and then we burned it out to a native app, which was really fun. But that uses a web layer. And where React's sweet spot is it skips the web view and gives us kind of a superset of XML tags, which we'll go over, and gets us closer to native. So that native layer is your Objective-C. It is your Swift. It is your Java. So the closer we can get to native, the better performance we have, the more native widgets, because I didn't code any. I think you can now with Cordova. They have the bridge, but I didn't use it. So there's this other thing called NativeScript, and I've also played with this a little bit. It's straight up JavaScript, which is really fun. And it's using HTML tags. But definitely, if you're interested in getting in this ecosystem, check this out, because you can use your Vue skills, you can use your Angular, and then when I originally played with it, I just did straight up TypeScript and JavaScript to those hello world stuff. So check that out as well. And again, these hybrid apps get us closer to, the React Native get us closer to the native experience. But the hybrids are nice, and they're very popular because then I can push it out to the web. So whatever we're doing in React Native, if they ask you to go to the web, nope, it's not going to be a solution for you for that project. So let's talk about the history of React Native. It was actually started by a hackathon, 2013. It became public in 2015 at ReactCon. So it's almost 4 years old. So it's a 3-year-old, basically. You know, we're almost 4. How many of you have raised 3-year-olds? They are wonderful and terrible all at the same time, right? When they're behaving well, you love them and you just want 5 more. When they're terrible, you want to get rid of the one you have. And React is a little bit like that. It's temperamental. It's new, and this is what some of the things, if you want to read how Airbnb's experience with React Native, they go through a lot of learning cycles, because some of the things, some core features were not there yet, and we found that with our project as well, too. But why is React Native so popular? I love this quote in the middle, because we do use WordPress and other languages. It's nice to learn it once and use it everywhere. And you think of it like WordPress with extensions. We can add extensions to it, we link, and just put in what we need and keep the rest out. But it is super web developer friendly. So don't be afraid to get into it. Like everything we do, it can get complicated real quick when clients throw random requirements at us, but for the most part, it's really good. But this is the power of it. It uses React. And then you've got your components, reusability, it's testable through Jest, and it's got separation. It really helps with your separations of concerns, getting rid of that spaghetti code, and then your life cycles. Android, native development, the life cycles are notoriously complex, all right? But it's declarative. One of the really nice things about React Native is the live refresh as well as in React. Its performance, and when you're using Redux, you have one single source for all of your data. I've coded in Angular, and it was AngularJS, and half of my job was chasing scope. It's actually called scope soup. I had no idea it was. I ate it for months and months. But what does this code look like? It's similar, like I was saying, it's an XML kind of framework, and have anybody in here coded Xamarin? Xamarin Dev. So this kind of looks like Xamarin, right? Yeah. And if you're using native script with just JavaScript, you're going to have similar tags. So when I'm learning this, I usually keep the library docs open in one monitor, and then I'll have my code in another until you memorize the tags and it's coming off your fingers. But it's in JSX, except there's no div tags. You're going to think of your view tags as your container tags. If anything is not wrapped properly, it blows up beautifully and tells you you're an idiot. And we'll see that. All right, but why? So again, kind of sharing support. It's using React, ES6 for compiling, Jest for test, Detox for end-to-end. End-to-end testing is when you're actually looking as a user, it's running the emulators, and it's having the click events. So it's something similar to Selenium, but for mobile. And right now it's only supported fully for iOS. I think there's some rough cuts in Android that are coming up. But this middle statement is very much true. It's easier for humans to write. It's just less code. It's native framework. And using the power of JavaScript, those C# devs are not really happy with JavaScript. They want stronger typefacing, which you can do, obviously. But for quick proof of concepts, it's great. So just some more stuff. Let's just keep going, because I want you guys to eat. No single source. So your deployment cycles, please keep this in mind. If you are going to production with this, React Native, none of these will solve the actual deployment. You're still going to have to go through the iStore, Apple Store. You're still going to have to go Google Play, Microsoft Store as well too. Working with emulators is a total pain. So if you haven't done mobile app dev, they will lock up on you and you'll have to restart it. You might have to restart your whole computer. Eventually you'll kind of learn some commands to kill your emulators as well too. But it's not too bad. So what does this shared code platform look like? It's just a platform statement. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to show you some of this in the code bases we're going to go over as well too. But it's real easy to read. I can sit and pair program with my tester, walking through a bug or something else, like, oh, I'm not a coder. I'm like, everybody's a coder. Sit down. Follow the logic. What are we missing here? But it is easy. So we do our layouts in Flexbox. So how many UI developers here? How many proud UI developers here? All right, that's better. So Flexbox, but it's a superset of Flexbox. You don't have your full power, and think about it, because your Flexbox is going to get compiled into the native APIs. So you're going to have a limited set. But again, if you're new to it, it's actually faster to learn. I'm going to start hitting the web here. This is exciting. I don't know what's going to happen. All right, cool, we're connected. So when I talked about earlier how I would have the documentation open, React Native, Facebook, GitHub IO, this is kind of the Bible as you're starting out in React Native. Keep this open in one screen. It gives you some nice boilerplate stuff to play with. So if I want to change this direction from row to column, it'll actually do it. So my full stack guys and gals who are not very comfortable on the front end or Flex, I'm like, well, get the layout done right here real quick and then just move it over. And this isn't a talk on Flexbox. It's just a plug to give you some resources on where to do that. But when you're doing React Native, you're going to want to constantly look for React Native code and not just the regular superset. All right, so now let's get into some code. This is the fastest way to get into React Native. This is actually paired with Facebook, the Expo I/O, and I'll talk about that in just a moment, but I want to start showing you some code. So those of you that have your computers, hit snack.expo.io, and it gives you an app right there. Let me load one of my snacks, because they're delicious. This is a quick example. All right, so this is a great way to get started when you're taking on a large project. You do need a Mac, or if you're going to do a iOS build, you need a Mac. So you got to acquire a Mac, you got to download Xcode, you got to do all this stuff. So in the meantime, when you're waiting for all your permissions and your software to come in and download and install, start learning it. This is what I use to show the kids as well. It's got the full preview on here. I can do light and dark theme. I've got the prettier plugin, so I can make the code prettier. I also have, I think, type ahead, too. So let's look at this. Can you see this well enough? Let me try to bump it up. Come on, get there. All right, that's a little bit too big. All right, let's hide the preview and just look at some code for a minute. All right, so this is just straight up React. I can use it as a class. I can just use it as a dumb function, keep it as simple, as complicated as I want. We've got some simple state management going on here. Now, everything is in JavaScript, so notice these style tags. It's actually just script properties. All right? So the syntax is just a little bit different, but it looks like something we would already be coding in, right? This is something familiar. It's easy to grasp and start changing properties on. I can do inline styles, and I can do component-based styles. So if you scroll all the way down, you can see I've got some container, I've got my paragraph, and I've got a platform select statement. Let's look at what I did with that. All right, the cool thing about this is actually hooked up to to live emulators. How many of you have used, was it Browserify or whatever, when we had to test code through it? So it's hooked up to real devices. You don't always get a chance. So right now, I don't have one. I did before the talk, but that's okay, because I want to run it on my device. So if I want to run it on my device, I'm going to download Expo app. Again, create the account so you see my face up here. And I'm going to hit run on device. And because I already have it installed, I actually have my device hooked up right here. This is my device. I'm using, if those of you that don't know, you can use QuickTime and show your device. I'm going to go ahead and open up Expo. Thank you. Let's try again. There we go. You can download all kinds of sample code to get you started, and then you can link your sample code directly to the Cloud IDE in Snack. So it's a cool way. Except when you're doing this, I always want to click my computer instead of my phone. And my code camp is not there. Let's try this again. One thing I haven't figured out with the Expo app is I can't switch apps. I have to kill Expo and start it again. And I did give them feedback. Expo has a really active Slack channel. They answer questions very quickly. Come on. Well, so the other thing I do is I can go to the device. I can actually open this, so if it's being stupid or I'm being stupid, I can go to my camera. Come on. And I have to show the whole QR code. There we go. Do you see it's popping up? So open an Expo. There was a problem with my internet. Oh, I'm offline. Why didn't you guys tell me that? I thought we're doing this together. See? No, women will just scream, dude, you're off. You guys are too nice. Come on. It's okay. I don't take it personal. All right, let's try this again with internet connection, everybody. Let's just, there was a problem, really? Come on. Yes. I'm offline again? Oh, thank you. Come on. I know you can do this. The internet connection appears to be offline. All right, well, let's just open up something. Oh, hey. Come on. We're kind of online. We're online. Come on. We got to be again. There we go. Hey. Applause. Thank you. This is why friends don't let friends code together. All right, so what's happening here? I've got live interaction going on, and I got live code I can go ahead and change. And now it's going to run in both places. So here it's running on the right-hand side, it's running in the cloud. Now keep in mind, I don't have Xcode running at all, right? I'm coding and creating a native app out the gate. So what are the cool things we can do with the native app? So I've got like a phone input here. That makes no sense. Let's change it to a phone pad. So I've got some commented out code that I can just change the keyboard type. And the return key is not applicable in this scenario. I can change out the placeholder text. See how I have it blue? Let's change it to green. I don't know. Whatever. And it'll do a live refresh. See that right there? See it right here? I love it when it works. All right, this is the real thing. Ta-da! All right, but these are two iPhones. What the heck does it look like in Android? So I can switch. I don't have an Android. It might take a minute. We'll just let this keep charging. So I can show you my changes over here. I have a max length field. There's lots of things out the gate that gives me some formatting options. I can do multi-lines. I can change the text. Can do all kinds of fun stuff. And then, as you can see, I just have some sample code binding the state. I have, that's not it, it's right there, for the input too. So there's lots of basic things we can do with this. So I changed it to a number pad. Da, 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 and what's gonna happen? Oh, a number pad, yay. So I can change it to a URL. Now, a lot of this stuff you can actually kind of do in HTML5. A lot of people don't know that. I think HTML5 is kind of underutilized as well. So this is, if I want to do an autocomplete, so let's go ahead and I have a keyboard. If I start typing something, I'll show you what I'm doing. There we go. I can get the autocomplete to turn off or on as well too. Sometimes people like that. So then if I want the URL and I want it to say done or go, I can have the return key. That's just a string. So I can say go if it's a URL. I'm not even pressing save right now. Oh, ta-da. Come on. So I just changed this to go. I can have it say DevFest, whatever, and really confuse our QA. Like, why is it saying DevFest? I don't know. All right. Oh, now it's saying return. It didn't like DevFest. I guess that was too long. But there's some basic overwrites from here. So I can get started coding pretty darn quickly. All right. So obviously, this was super quick. And I didn't need to do Xcode. I didn't have to install the Android virtual devices. There was nothing. So this is what I did to show Girls Who Code. I had them come to Tampa, our Tampa Agile Thought office, gave them a tour. I set them up with one React Native developer per table, and this is one of the apps they created. They just kind of played with the hello world. They did this all in Snack. The teacher had them download the Expo app and set up an account. And the cool thing is, Expo, I can share it. So if we want to, hey guys, let's start coding an Expo app, we can do proof of concepts and share that just within our Expo account, which is really nice. So it's very, very powerful. It has a smaller set of APIs. It's got Google and Camera. There's all the girls. They were super happy. And our mentors were happy too. So just real quick, more about the Expo. So really that's your fastest way to get started. And when you go to facebook.com, they actually give you, oh, hang on. So this is the React Expo CLI, which is used on Facebook, GitHub. This comes with the accelerometer, the camera, the video, and contacts are kind of the core ones. And then I have a link to all the tools. So it works because I'm not doing it locally. It pushes it up to their server. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to do the CLI. We're going crazy. This is the other part that gets really fun. It really helps if you have admin rights, especially if you're on a Windows computer. Obviously, if you're on a Windows, you're only going to be able to do the Android. Except when you're using the CLI, you can actually build on your iPhone from a Windows computer because you're not doing the builds, you're going through Expo, right? So let's see what that looks like. Da, da, da. All All right, so I have this up. I'm going to kill this one real quick. Come on, die. So let's go through the commands real quick so you see how I got there. All right, this is the one, like I said, that Facebook gives us. There's some more resources in there. Let's go to the command line stuff. So I have to install just simple npm, install it globally. I didn't have to do sudo on this, but if you do have a work computer that's kind of wonky, think about that. So I already did this because I don't want to test the presentation gods by trying to do this live. So I already installed it. And once I have it, I cd to that directory, and I simply do npm start. So let's do that. Let me make sure I'm in the directory. I think I am. Yes. Okay. No. Yes. All right. I say, how do we make the command large? You'll see it in just a moment. So this is what it's doing. It's actually bundling up and running a local instance of Expo. So I do have, to answer your question, all I did was run npm start on this, and then it burns up the CLR code. All right, so then it gets really fun. So now the code's local on my computer, and I can open it with VS Code. VS Code's really a great way to get started with it. I prefer it. And I have, now notice that I don't, this one actually does have it. I'm in the other one. So there's two CLIs. Come on. All right, there's two CLIs. I want to show you the Expo one, and then I want to show the other one. All right, so this one does not, notice that this is with the Expo CLI. It does not have Android or iOS builds, okay? The core code just starts at the app. And then I already have it running. So I can go ahead and run on my simulator, because I do have the simulator installed. If I don't have the local simulators installed, I can run on my device. So let's kill this one. Again, showing what I'm doing on my computer. There we go, open in Expo. So now I'm doing local development. I'm no longer using the Cloud IDE. If I have Xcode installed, I can run the emulators. If I don't, it's fine. So it's loading and compiling everything. Here's my simulator running, and my actual device is running as well too. So then from here, I've got the dev tools that I can run all the debugs from here. So you can't, I don't really have tried to do debugging I haven't tried to do debugging much in the Expo IDE. But it runs via the service workers from this standpoint, so I can dig through. In just a moment, it'll show, once it's finishing compiling, it'll show all of my build files. So I can go ahead and set up my breakpoints just as I would as a web developer, right? So those of you that have coded in React, I can hit breakpoints for the life cycles and check my data and all that other good stuff. So I have all of those debug tools at hand. So does that make sense so far? Because I've got a lot going on. I've got my emulators up and running, and I have my device as well too. So this is the Expo out of the box CLIs. Okay. For the sake of time, I'm going to kill it. Die. I usually just kill it from the land. Oh, and it also gives you, stop. It also gives me the URL for local debugging as well too. You don't have to be connected. If you're home working and your computer and your phone is connected to your Wi-Fi, you can do, from your Windows box, you can do native app dev, and it'll push all the live updates as well. So it's pretty, I don't know any other tool that does that. Maybe they'll show some cool stuff with Flutter, but the live refresh and things are really awesome. But I can do the same thing. The disadvantage of using Expo, I've got some slides to talk about it. The disadvantage of using it is, I'm going to cover the two CLIs right now. It is the fastest way to get started. The CLI that I just demoed is on your left. It bootstraps the Expo. There's no need for Xcode. There's no need for Android Studios. this is why I could teach kids to code within less than an hour, and we could do some cool, fun stuff with it. Doesn't need any stuff. You do have to eject it to get it to if you want to get it production ready and everything. You'll have to eject it. All right, so let's look at the React Native init. Now this does require Xcode. This does require Android Studio, if you're on a Mac. And then, of course, people like this because if I do know some Objective-C and I do know how to customize the manifest files to get all of my custom icons and fonts and everything, this is a better place to start for enterprise app building. If you're starting for an enterprise app, definitely start with React Native init. Okay? So let's see what it looks like. So exciting, I don't know what's gonna happen. All right, this is the one too that you do need admin rights, especially on Windows. I use this deck. I do have some lab exercises in there for you to kind of get started with. I use this deck for a half-a-day course as well. So this is the commands to go ahead and start the project. Can you see this? These commands are actually not on. This is a third party that builds straight the build out. This is not on Facebook, so you kind of have to dig around and look for it. The support is a little bit behind, so when you install this, it might be about one version behind in React Native, or it's catching up. But it's the same thing. You're going to install it globally, React Native CLI. You're going to create a project with an init command, and you're going to cd to that directory. For the sake of time, I have already downloaded and created that. Let's open up the files. And how does that look different than the other one? All right, this is the CLI. Open up the file structure. All right, so what do I get with this CLI that I didn't get with, thank you, with the other? All right, I already have the built out Android and the iOS files. So those of you that have used Cordova, when you use the command line to actually build these directories, it gives it right out the gate for the init command. It is very bare bones, but that's kind of all I need. And then I can go ahead and start building out my React Native framework. You don't want to put any code into, very, very limited code in your Android and your iOS. Those are your build directories. Okay, so when we do our builds, when we do our APKs and our IPAs and stuff, that's when we go into those directories. So the power of React Native is it's taking what we have in the main directories, we set up our React app, React Native, and then it's going to compile to those directories. So out the gate, I have some more power for custom configurations. And you want to do this if you're building an enterprise app. All right, so how do we launch this? Well, first I have to kill all the other stuff and make sure I do that good because it gets very temperamental when you're trying to run two. So Control C, thank you very much, you were wonderful. Sometimes it's not. And then this should die. I'm gonna hit yes. So it died, that's good. I'm going to, all right, so let's cd real quick into the other directory. So we can see what the other CLI looks like. Too many open. Where's my Finder? Thank you. All right, so I got my init file, so I'm going to cd to my React Native init. All right, so I'm in that directory, and it's the same thing, Npm Start. I have to spell it right. All right, so what's happening now that's different than what happened in Expo? React Native init is going to be using Watchman to build all the watch files. I still get the live refresh. I still get all those benefits. Now I'm no longer, I can code completely offline now. So if I wanted to disconnect from the internet, it's fine. Unless my app needs it, of course. So there it is. It's looking for the files. It's loading them. And it's going to run my server locally. Okay, and we're just waiting for it to load up all the dependencies. So what this is not going to give me, it's not going to give me a QR code. I can't share code easily. I still have to push my code out on GitHub or collaboration. I got some friction, potentially, as well. Come on. So this computer's a little bit slow. It's the low-end MacBook Pro. When I was working on the enterprise project, I had the higher end MacBook Pro. I was able to have my Android emulator and my iOS emulator both running. I would get live refresh in each screen, which was really nice. While we're waiting for this, I can show you how I did these platform statements. Let me uncomment this, save it, thank you. So for Android, I have a blue background, and then for iOS, I put to red. Oh, all right, fine. I can run this on my device. Come on. So when I have, yes, I know, I gotta kill Expo. Open this one, Expo. I'm just showing the Expo right now so you can see how the switch statements work. So obviously as a UI developer, there's a lot of nuances. There's a lot of difference in default padding. There is no CSS reset when you're working in these environments. Definitely do both at the same time. I was given the direction, oh no, we're just gonna focus on iOS. Well, I spent 2 weeks cleaning up for Android, and I really wish they would have let me done both parallel. So you kind of live and learn from that regard. So the native build is still compiling. It might not happen at the end of this, but it's basically the same workflow. Does that make sense? It's a little bit confusing. That's why I wanted to really get you to understand the two CLIs out there. To get started and learn it, definitely start with Expo. But to start building your native, big app that's going to make you billions of dollars, I would start with the React Native CLI. All right, so we showed that. My other one's being underwhelmed. And actually, one thing, thank you. And this one actually showed up, so I can show the Android side. We'll just kind of tap to play and let it run. So I showed you that, I showed you that. I'm gonna make sure I cover everything. All right, so we covered that. I do have in the deck, I've got some instructions. There is a lot more setup, as I said, to use the React Native in it. I've got some references there for Brew, for Chocolatey. This helps manage your permissions in your node versions. And like I was saying, you still get all the native support for the init. Where is React Native right now? Well, the React Native team is doing daily commits to master. Marketplace from Facebook is 100% in React Native, includes tons of screens. And then the new Oculus VR Go headset, the companion mobile app, is 100%. Now, I haven't played with it yet. I just but the React Native 360 is like really cool. So once you set this up, you can easily hook up the React Native 360 stuff. I did a build with Windows UWP. Thank God we had really good C# people who were recovering Xamarin developers. That was a joke, okay. But they had known some of the hooks of some of that, but there was definitely some challenges building it out to UWP. Microsoft is a little bit behind. We actually had to be 2 versions behind in our React Native core to support Windows, so keep that in mind. They're on a 2-week release cycle. That's insane. That's really working in bleeding edge tech. So think about it, how it has to work though. The OSs get updated, then the core code gets updated, they release the dev APIs, that's great. Well then React Native, we're gonna take those and update all of that and connect to the new bridges and everything else, and then push the updates. So there's a lot of things in flight. Even though it's now almost 4 years old, when you're working in this tech, it still kind of feels bleeding edge. We had to write our own date picker for Windows, which you'd think that would be kind of a basic thing for Windows. But again, reach out to your dev community. We reached out to Facebook. We reached out to the Microsoft people, and everybody's really excited to keep this product going and to keep it doing really well. In the hiring trends, I know most of the stuff today is about Angular. I'm coding in Angular today, but React is still really popular within Stack Overflow as well too. So I've got some more resources in here. I've got some good articles as well. A note about the articles. Remember how I was saying that things are changing in this ecosystem really quickly. If the article, the blog article or the how-to is more than 6 months old, I wouldn't even reference it because the CLIs and everything have changed. I've done this talk 4 times now, and I've had to rewrite it because one of them, thank God, I tested that morning because they had just deprecated the CLI that I was going to talk all about. Wow, it was a meetup. It was really wonderful. We all learned a lot together that evening. So don't be afraid to do that. All of these experiences are really for us to learn. Let me see if my CLI ever did build so I can show you that. Hey, no, you didn't. But it's going to be the same experience. It just has some more boilerplate code in there as well, too. I don't want to take too much of your time. I do want to cover a couple of final thoughts. Like I was saying, giving back to your community. We're so blessed to be in a great community. It's almost unconscionable to take, and not give back because we have great salaries and great benefits. So really encourage, get uncomfortable, talk to people, do a lightning talk in your community. And then I think the only reason I've been able to stay in this industry is I have respect for my personal boundaries and work boundaries. You know, when they ask you to work more than you're willing to, or you know that after 12 hours of coding, you're just going to get diminishing returns, and you'll be embarrassed of anything you wrote at 2 a.m. the next morning. So really, the industry is always going to push us and push us and push us, and we have to politely, as professionals, push back and say, no, I'm going to write unit tests with this code. No, I'm not going to, have our dev team work 16-hour days. It doesn't make sense. So that's kind of my platform from there. And obviously, at our conference, you need to do something magical. So that is it. Thank you guys so much. I do have the deck ready, and I hope I've given you enough information to go ahead and get started in React Native, play with some of the APIs. It's super easy.